Wanna Bet, Chapter 3. Things Get Interesting. You have got to be kidding me. Jethro crossed his arms across his chest in protest. Come on, Jet. She's not that bad. Youkuro nudged him and Jethro glared at him. For Mike, his nickname was Proby. For Youkuro, it was Jet. For both, he wanted to shoot his senior agents. You're right, she's worse, he argued. They were, of course, discussing the fact that Youkuro had chosen him to work with Jenny that night on some aspects of the case. Finding the suspect's parents, if they were still alive, finding her home address to see if she knew any of the werewolves, and tomorrow going back to the pack to see if Jethro could get a whiff of their scent. Jet, I have other things to do, and Mike's interviewing witnesses. What do you want me to do? The vampire shrugged and nodded at the bullpen where Jen sat at her desk, typing in a flurry. There's Chinese in it for you, he tempted. Jethro's stomach growled loudly and he groaned. You owe me, he muttered. Get in there, Romeo. Jethro glared at him and walked into the bullpen. Youkuro smirked and pressed the down button on the elevator. Hello, Jethro. She doesn't even look up from her computer when she speaks to me, he thought, slightly irritated, and yet he couldn't believe he hadn't noticed earlier how the green sweater she wore brought out the red in her hair and the color of her eyes. What am I doing? Get a grip. She's your partner. Jen, he greeted in a slightly cold voice. Working late, I see? No social life of your own? She asked idly. A slight growl escaped his throat. I have a social life, Miss Shepherd, but if duty calls, then I put it on hold. Duty sucks, he thought darkly, wishing he were anywhere else but here. What do we have so far? There, I changed the topic. Be nice, try not to shoot her. I can do this, he thought. Sawyer has a mother and sister living. Father died of a heart attack when she was 12. The mother, Anne, lives close by, and the daughter, Sharon, is attending college in New York, she reported. Tomorrow, we go to the mother and explain the situation, Jethro stated from his side of the bullpen. Oh, that'll be a great conversation. Your daughter was eaten by werewolves. Sorry. Really smooth, Gibbs. Excuse me, Jen, but we have to tell the family why their daughter's dead, and then bring those creatures to justice. She wants to argue. I can argue right back. He glared at her with those Mark Harmon blue eyes. And when they find out you're one of those creatures, like the ones that killed their daughter and sister? Damn, Jethro, can't you see I'm trying to help you? She screamed it, and then there was silence. She was protecting him? All that coldness towards him these past months, all these arguments and bickering, and she was protecting him? Why, Jenny? He asked, so softly he wondered if she even heard him. You may annoy me sometimes. We may fight and argue about things, but you're a nice guy, Jethro, and you're a good agent. The best Proby we've ever had, in fact, and I'd like to keep you alive and on the team for as long as possible. If that means we can't tell people what you are, or what killed the person they love, then so be it, she said, then took a breath. There was another long silence, and Jethro could only stare at the redhead. Her cheeks blushed a deep red, and she looked away. You think I'm worth keeping around? He asked sincerely. Don't let it get to your head, or I'll have to shoot you, she said with a small smile. Jethro smiled himself, and leaned back slightly in his chair. How about some Chinese? Youkuro smiled. He and Ducky had been watching from another cubicle, and he had to say, his pair of agents had chemistry. Score one for me? Ducky asked with a smile. Score one for you, but trust me, don't expect anything to come of this part of the bet, the vampire warned playfully. Oh, of course not. It's the case we're focused on, Ducky said, but his tone belied his words. As Jethro and Jen walked up to the house, he could see the uncomfortable look on her face, and they stopped at the door. This hard? He asked. Sometimes, she admitted. The family can react to it in many ways, and it's best to try and stay calm. He nodded and knocked on the door. A pretty redhead answered the door, dressed in a light blue shirt and a pair of jeans. What is it with all the redheads lately? Jethro wondered if there was an epidemic. Can I help you? She asked, looking confused. Special Agent Jennifer Shepard and Jethro Gibbs. Jenny held up her badge, and Jethro did the same. Are you Shannon Allison? She asked. Yeah, the girl replied. Jethro's blue eyes softened. She was pretty. College in New York. I'd have to take her for a snob, but his mind trailed off, and Jen had elbowed him. Is your mom home? Jenny asked, shooting him a dirty look. Yeah. Do you guys want to come in? She asked, holding the door open. They stepped in, and she walked to the bottom of the stairs. Mom! She called. Then she turned back to them. Want some lemonade? She asked brightly. Telling the mother was hard. Anne Allison sobbed on her daughter's shoulder for nearly 20 minutes before regaining composure and asking what had killed her daughter. Jethro pulled the sleeve of his shirt around his fingers to make sure Mrs. Allison or her daughter didn't see the number tattooed there. When Jen told her, more sobs came from the mother, and a lot of yelling came from Shannon. In fact, Jethro was surprised such fury could come from such a small girl, and he was glad when it was over. That hard for you? Jen asked as they walked back to the car. What, the other's girl hate for werewolves? No sweat. I've met people like that all my life, and it's no big. He shrugged. They had reached the van when Shannon came running down the stone path. It's Jethro, right? She asked. He nodded, and she placed something in his hand. Call me, she said, and ran back to the house. Jen stared dumbfounded as he opened the paper. It was her phone number. This story was written by j9y at deviantart.com. Go to j9y.deviantart.com to find her gallery for more writing.